Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Boston Straight Shooters. I'm your host for the evening, Steve, aka Negative Ned. Frank is away on business again this week. So once again, I'll do my best to hold on the fort for this week. This is the show where we talk about the Patriots, the Bruins, the Celtics, and the Red Sox. We'll recap everything that has happened during the week. Give me a chance here to post the link for everybody so you guys can join. And then we'll get things started. I am gonna try and start with the Bruins now that their season is over. A lot of unhappy campers, I'm sure. That they're not in the playoffs and that they they had a bad year and they kind of dismantled the team, so to speak. And they traded away some players that people aren't happy that they traded, so on and so forth. I am not as obviously we recapped this already. I'm not as broken up as a lot of other people about those players that got traded. Brad Marchand in particular. We'll talk about that later. But right now, before I get into the Bruins, I missed something last week that I need to cover, and that is this right here.
Here is Ovechkin, shoots, he scores! He scores! Number 895!
Alex Ovechkin broke Wayne Gretzky's record for most goals in a career with 895. I don't think anybody could have saw that record being broken, or any of Gretzky's records. We're talking about everyone. The great Gretzky. He's the greatest of all time. Not Bobby Orr is, in my opinion, but whatever. This guy is just pure sniper, and he's a physical player. Has never shied away from the physical contact. I think that's one of the reasons I like him. A lot of people don't like him just because, he's Russian or, he shouldn't have broke Gretzky's record and this and that and whatever. The other thing, too, is he broke the record in the same number of games played as Gretzky. They're pretty much the exact same number. And that's pretty remarkable. And when you want to look at the top goal scorers in NHL history, he's definitely one of them. I would say from just a pure sniper standpoint, it's him. Mike Bossy, who doesn't get enough credit because his career got cut short. 573 goals in 10 years. He averaged over 50 goals a year for every year except his last year. He got 38 and had to retire at 30 with a bad back. I mean, I can't imagine if he had played until 37 or 38 years old, if he could have broke 1,000 the way he was scoring. And Mario Lemieux was another guy that also could score, just had it as far as scoring goes. And, without the injuries, I think he would have been, I don't know if he would have broke Gretzky's points record overall, but he definitely probably would have broke the goals. And I think he would have been the only other NHL player to get 2,000 points in a year if he had stayed healthy. And both Bossy and Mario Lemieux, goals per game average is like 0.75 something. And Gretzky and Ovechkin is 0.60. Now, obviously nothing to sneeze at because, they were great for so long. But 0.75 in a game, that's pretty damn hard to do. And you're talking about guys that are just pure snipes. So, listen, again, I forgot to mention it last week, and I needed to do that because, these records, they don't come around very often, especially that kind of goal, overall goal scoring record doesn't come around very often. So kudos to Alex Ovechkin and kudos to Gretzky, who was in the building when he broke the record and, went on record as saying, hey, I'll be the first one to shake his hand. And, without getting too much into the weeds about it, he just said, his father told him that, hey, you're going to break Gordie Howe's record. And, when your records get broken, be gracious about it. And he did. And so kudos to him. passing of the torch, so to speak, doesn't come around very often. So I just wanted to make a mention of that. Now, on to the Bruins, or AKA the Losins, as I call them, because they just found ways to lose. The season finally came to an end, and abnormally bad year for them. 27th in goals for, 26th in goals against. The power play was 29th at 15%. The penalty kill was 24th at 76%. They gave up 12 shorthanded goals, at least, that I know of. They had 14 or 15 games at least of giving up like 6 goals or more. The defense was just bad all year long. They fired Jim Montgomery, and it still didn't help, in my opinion. And just, overall, just an absolute, train wreck of a season. And you can point to the signings that they made of Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov not panning out. They paid big bucks for those guys. Listen, you're not going to hit home runs on all these guys. It doesn't happen. And there could have been some kind of a chemistry issue when Lindholm, didn't mesh with Pasternak right away or whatever. Also, maybe a change in coach. I don't know. It took a while for him to kind of get going. I will say that Elias Lindholm, last 11 games, he played most of those games with David Pasternak and Morgan Geekie, and they did find some chemistry. In his last 11 games, he had 5 goals and 6 assists, which is, way much more like what we wanted from him when we got him. And so maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel there for next year. And look, he's not going to get a point a game. He's not going to get 80 points. But, if he can get 20 goals and get a point a game and be way more – there was too many games this year where he was just invisible. Like you didn't even see him out there. His name wasn't getting mentioned or anything. So hopefully there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. Zadorov, look, I'm not going to complain about that signing. A lot of people are down on him. They think he sucks or whatever, but I like it because he's a big guy and they needed a big guy to clear out the front of the net. And he took a lot of stupid penalties this year. He was out of position a lot. I'm hoping that, regardless of who the new coach is, when they get in here and they fix the defensive structure, that he's a better part of what they do. And, much less, costly mistakes and, stupid penalties and so forth. But I would not be in a hurry to get rid of him. I know that a lot of people want him out of town, but he's the least of our worries, in my opinion. Jeremy Swayman, missing training camp, missing all of training camp. I mentioned it at the time. Every time a guy misses that much time in a training camp, no matter what sport it is, they're always behind the 8 ball. It costs them. Yeah, they get their money, but it costs them their sharpness at the beginning of the year, and they have to play catch up with everybody else. And then it doesn't work. So, then when it doesn't work, then, whatever excuse you want to make for him, he just didn't have it this year. And so, I'm sure people won't agree with me, but I wouldn't be opposed to trading him in the offseason. Unfortunately, again, his value is down, so you won't get what you should get for him as an $8 million guy. So they have to pray that next year he's much better. A lot of the guys on the post-game show yesterday after I watched the game said that they expected a bounce-back year from him. They expected him to get right. And you better hope he does, because he played 58 games this year. If he has to play that many games, 55, 60 games again next year, and he's this bad, they're going to suck again. So I hope he gets rectified. I hope the whole issues he had in his head with the contracts and the arbitration and the team and this and that, like, finally throw all that away and put that crap to bed and come in with a clear head and start playing more like an $8 million goalie and not an $8 goalie. It is extremely funny, at least for me, to know that now for the second time in 3 years, they fired their coach and Jim Montgomery has led the Blues into the playoffs. They were 8 points out of a playoff spot in mid-February, and they went on a 12-game run over the course of the last few weeks. And look, he's done a good job with them. And there's a lot of speculation, of course, on sports radio about whether he wanted to be here or not because they wouldn't re-sign him. He was trying to negotiate an extension. They wouldn't give it to him. Or they wouldn't give him what he wanted. And they wanted him to prove it again this year to before they decide what they were going to do. Lame duck coach. So there's some speculation or thought that, he just didn't have his heart in it from the get-go. And, the team was kind of a mess right in training camp. And, I'll say it again because I have said this before a number of times that, Billy Jaffe on Nesson mentioned that in training camp there was kind of like a malaise during the training camp. Nobody could put their finger on it. So, I immediately pointed the finger at Jeremy Swayman because of the contract thing. But, it would not surprise me if Jim Montgomery was also part of that problem because of his contract situation. And so you got two unhappy campers in camp at the start. Nobody can fix it, and it never got right. And, from there, things just kind of snowballed in a bad way. So, with the season being over and no playoffs for them for the first time since 2016, it's a bummer on one hand. On the other hand, if you're looking forward to the draft, which I am, right now they sit fifth. There's a couple teams I think that have games left. I want to say Philadelphia, maybe Montreal or Columbus. A bunch of those teams had one game left to play, and they're either tied or no, not Montreal, but I think Columbus and Philly were like tied, and maybe Seattle in the West. Them and the Bruins and like 3 or 4 teams were like within 1 or 2 points of each other to make it so that the Bruins actually might not finish in 4th or 5th. They might actually finish 8th by the time the season ends in the next day or two. So better keep your fingers crossed that those teams win their last games, and the Bruins, after almost winning last night and losing 5-4 in overtime to the Devils, they kind of pulled the Patriots and almost pulled it off and knocked themselves back a few more notches. I really hope that they can get 5th, and then when they have the drawing, they have 2 ping pong ball drawings, one for the first overall pick and one for the second overall pick, and the teams that win those spots can't move up more than 10 spots. So if the 11th team wins the first ping pong, they end up first, and then the 10th team wins and they're second or whatever it is, then that pushes everybody back. And let's say those 2 teams won those first 2 picks, then San Jose, who's the worst team, would pick 3rd, and Chicago, I think, is after them, and they would pick 4th, and so on and so forth. That would knock the Bruins back to like 6th or 7th. Nobody wants to see that. So the flip side of that is if the Bruins were 4th or 5th, maybe their odds of moving up via the ping pong ball, maybe they can get in the top 3 and get a better pick. There will be a point before the draft where we'll have some of the top names that they could be looking at. I'm not going to get into that right now. It's too soon. But I am in favor, and I am a little bit excited to see what they're going to do now with the draft, with the picks they have, the young guys that came in. Casey Middlestat, he played on the 3rd line last night. Marat Husnudinov, I'm going to get that guy's name right yet somehow. I don't think that was a bad attempt, by the way. But that guy shows a little bit of promise. He scored a nice goal on a feed from Fabian Lysell, who I've been all over as a bust. He actually scored a goal, his first goal last week, and had a nice pass yesterday. So I don't know what they can get out of him. Frazier Minton that they got in the Brandon Carlo trade, he's another guy. I think he was the fourth line center last night, but he should be on the third line, worst case. And Middlestat shouldn't be on the third line. He should be the second line center. So hopefully those guys can elevate next year, next training camp next year and make some headway into becoming some young glue guys that they need, some goal scoring and, some talent and get the as mentioned before, the talent in the lower levels in their drafts has been devoid for a while now. They haven't been good at drafting. And so, there's some positivity to look forward to. I mean, I think that, they had last night's game was a good game for them. They fought, they scrapped. They beat Pittsburgh before that in a surprise to me. I didn't think they would beat Pittsburgh, but they did. So the last two games, a little encouraging. I'm not going to, do like most people and be like, oh, they're going to win the cup next year or they're going to be in playoffs. It's way too soon for any of that talk. But the last two games, there was something there that I liked. The games before that, though, they lost to Chicago 5-2. And I have to laugh because – you have Ryan Donato, who the Bruins traded away, scored his 30th goal. And you had Nick Foligno, who the Bruins traded to Chicago, or let him go to Chicago as a free agent, scored the first goal in that game. And then to add insult to injury, I want to say it was I got his name stuck in my head. The guy from the Leafs they got in the trade, the guy that they got at the deadline a couple of years ago, they wanted to keep. Can't think of his name right now, but he scored, and I'm like, why can't the Bruins get guys like this? They don't get them. And actually, in last night's game, Mark McLaughlin, a guy that they waived, got an assist on one of the goals. So those just kind of add insult to injury. And again, I don't think that too many of those goals last night was Swayman's fault. I think just bad D, out of position, bad penalties. Just par for the course for the whole year. Couple bright notes. Obviously, David Pastrnak, another 40-goal campaign, another 100-point campaign, his third straight. Guy was phenomenal after the trade deadline, really stepped up. Became more of a leader on the ice with his play. So there's a lot of talk about maybe him being the captain next year, him or McAvoy. Again, too soon. I think that, whether or not Joe Sacco is coming back needs to be ironed out. The coach, I think he's gone myself, and they're going to get somebody else. And then that guy's going to handpick who he wants the captain to be. That'll be something worth watching next year in training camp and so forth. Another bright spot. All right, I got to give a shout out. I got to give shout outs to Sergeant Slaughter and Tim Anderson. Their guy, Morgan Geeky, won the 7th Player Award. Deservedly so. If you recall, back in like November, I definitely dumped all over him because he was doing squat. He was playing poorly. His first 22 games, he had 2 goals. He got benched 5 times within those 22 games and sat in the press box. So I feel that I deservedly dumped on him. And after Montgomery got fired, he turned it around. He got 30 goals in 55 games. Found some chemistry with David Pastrnak. And, look, he scored 17 goals last year, was a career high. He had a career high this year. And so kudos to him. I don't have to dump on him anymore. And hopefully, they'll bring him back and he'll be a 25 to 30 goal scorer. If you're expecting 30 or 35 goals, that may be a tad, unrealistic. I'd be happy with anywhere between 25 and 30, 25, 27, 28, something like that. But 30, obviously a bonus for a guy that's, unproven. And again, I mentioned last week, he's restricted. So other teams can offer him whatever they want. and the Bruins, it's going to be up to them whether to match it or not. And again, I told you, I feel that his salary range for me will be like $4 to $5 million a year and 4 or 5 years. And if you're talking 5 times 5, I'd do that, but I wouldn't go one penny higher than any of that. And no trade clause. I'm done with all that stuff. And I'm ranting a little bit, but we're going to have time to talk about free agency and talk about who they should sign and no trade clauses and all this other crap. I'm not gonna dive too far into that anymore. I do need to watch the time though, so we're going to stop talking about the Bruins. We're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about the Celtics. The Celtics finally know who their first round opponent is. They're going to be playing the Orlando Magic, who beat the Celtics 2 out of 3 games this year. The earlier games were a concern. I watched. I don't remember if I watched them both, but one of those games I watched, I'm pretty sure that Orlando was hustling more than them. They were all rebounding them. They were fast breaking the hell out of them. And the Celtics got behind and had, they were chucking up threes left and right. So that's a concern for me that, not that they're going to lose in the first round. I don't think they're going to lose to Orlando in the first round, but I do get worried that obviously the threes are going to do them in. Also to mention, Orlando won 2 out of the last 3, 2 out of the 3 games. But in the last game that they played last week, Orlando beat the Celtics 96-76, and none of the starters played. It was all the bench guys. So I don't know how much you can take out of that. I wouldn't really count that. I think that they were resting guys, rightfully so. And then the Celtics had back-to-back games against Charlotte. They beat them in the first game, 130-94. All the starters played in that game except Jaylen Brown, who's nursing a knee injury. They rightfully and smartly sat him down the last couple games. In the last game, all the scrubs played, and they beat them 93-86. A good win for the second and third unit guys that played. I don't have their numbers or anything like that. I did watch a lot of the game, but I wasn't really paying attention because a lot of those guys aren't going to be playing in the playoffs. The only guys that are really paying attention to is going to be Pritchett, Hauser, Cornette. Those are probably the top 3 guys off the bench after Al Horford. So I was paying more attention to those 3 rather, and less attention to Jordan Walsh and Shire and these other guys. They're playing minutes and getting some exposure and getting some experience and so forth to wrap up the season and give the other guys rest. That's a no-brainer. But the Celtics, most 3-pointers in the season with 1,443. They made the most 3-pointers. Actually, no, they didn't make the most per game, but they averaged 17.5 per game. They had the most attempts at 48 per game. So they have. I don't know if it's a record or not, but 48 3-point attempts per game. They shot 36.8% from 3, which is 10th in the league. And Orlando, you know what? I didn't look at them where they are. I don't think they're as good as the Celtics from 3. But still, if they can keep it in the 40s, 45-ish, 48 max, maybe 50 max in a game. Because if they have 60 in a game, me and Frank, when we talk, and I hop on this all the time, I hate when they throw up 63s in a game and, they take 90 shots and 2/3 of them are threes and they only making 17 and they lose, or they make 15 and they lose and they're cold. Again, recipe for disaster. That'd be probably the only concern I have. And, I heard some talk radio stuff about, can they find alternate ways to win besides the 3? I think they proved it last year. I think last year, Joe Mazzulla and the players, and they did adjust, and they did, if they didn't have a 3, went inside and changed up who was going to do what. So I would look for more of the same this year. They have the experience now of being the champs, and that should not change when playoff time rolls around. They're not going to be able to just rely on 63s a game. They know that. So I would expect them to, worst case, again, make the Eastern Conference Finals, and depending upon who they get, they should go to the finals. Realistically, they're still, they're probably not the favorites this year. It's probably Oklahoma City and Cleveland, and then maybe the Celtics. But like I continue to say, and I'll just keep saying it because, Ric Flair, to be the man, you got to beat the man. So until the champs get knocked off, I would still consider the Celtics as the favorites. The other two teams are unproven as far as I'm concerned, playoff wise. They haven't had deep runs like the Celtics have over the last 3 or 4 years. And so I just think that the Celtics are battle tested. And, again, the key for them is their health. Jaylen Brown, dealing with that knee injury. Supposedly he took some shots and sat out. And supposedly he practiced the other day and there was no issues and he was full go. They're going to need that because if he's at half speed, 50%, and he was only playing like 16 or 20 minutes a game, the last bunch of games he played, if he's like that, that's a concern, big time concern. Porzingis, he's a concern. They definitely need him. I mean, last year they got away with it without having him until the finals. But I think this year with Jaylen Brown having a kind of a questionable knee there, I don't think that they can afford to have, Jaylen Brown not be in the lineup or Porzingis, and that road will be much more difficult for them if those guys are hobbled or not 100% or don't play at all. Again, not news. It's not new. We've been going over it weekly, endlessly. It's part of the deal. But Orlando, they're scrappy. I'll give them that much. I mean, they're a scrappy team. And so I hope that the Celtics don't take them lightly. I hope they don't do, like they did with Atlanta a bunch of years ago where they got knocked off. I mean, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. I don't know if they'll sweep them, but they should knock them off in 5 games. I mean, they really should not have to go 6 or 7 games against Orlando, in my opinion. They should be able to knock them off. And while I'm talking about the threes and so forth, let's do a little Celtics clip here. Get everybody excited for the playoffs.
Oh, he's not going to eat it? Oh! Count in! It was Pritchard.
Peyton Pritchard with the half-court shot. Didn't count in that game, I don't think, but I would not be surprised if he made one of them at some point during the playoffs with the way he can make those. So I'm gonna. I know it's early. I know it's early for the predictions, and I'll recap it again later on. But I say he makes one. I say he makes one of those in the upcoming week versus Orlando, and we'll see what happens. But listen, we've talked about how they move the ball around, how they hit the open guy, how when they do, they have to make sure that guy's not cold. And they don't just keep feeding it to him. And I use Al Horford. That's a bad example because other guys get cold sometimes too. But, those games where he was like 0 for 6, 1 for 7, and they kept giving it to him and he kept shooting it. Like I've seen Pritchard have a few of those more recently, 1 for 8. Derek White had one here and there. Look, again, when it's one guy, it's okay. When all of them are going like that, you can't have it. So, listen, I know there's a lot of talk about next year, how they're going to try and change the rules for the threes, but this is what we're living with right now. And so my hope is that they don't, they make what they need to make, and they do what they should, and they change up what they need to when they need to. They should be able to have some kind of an inside presence. I mean, Porzingis is, and you know what? They look for matchups. I've seen it where, Porzingis is like towering over a guy. They will get it into him, and he'll score some easier buckets. And they need to do that. And I've seen Drew Holiday also, same thing. Low post some guys. They're gonna need to do that. Going forward, they're gonna have to figure out how to adjust, and I think that they will make those adjustments. I just don't see how they don't learn from what they did last year, or the last 2 years, I should say, more specifically. And look, at least there's one team around here giving us some excitement. So I'm looking forward to it. In this town, when you have teams in the playoffs, there's nothing like it. Obviously, I can't speak for other cities in the country, but when your teams are in the playoffs, it's a good thing. And so, we got to ride this. We got to ride this year because, again, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but after the season, the Celtics are going to be in some real salary cap trouble, and there's a lot of stuff going around about how they might break things up and not keep everybody again, and it's a whole slew of stuff. And so, better hope they come through this year and get the job done again and repeat. I think it would be great if they did. I think it would be great for. Listen, it would be great for Tatum and Brown to put those feathers in their caps, as Celtics, and for their careers. I'd be happy for them if they did. Again, people wanted to run these guys out of town a few years ago. They wanted to trade Jaylen Brown and break up the two Jays. Unnecessary, I think. They just needed a little better supporting cast, a little more experience, and the right coaching. Because listen, we hopped on Joe Mazzulla when he was making the mistakes, and I don't think this time around anybody should be afraid of him. I think that he's done a good job. He's learned a lot, and I think that he has shown that he's willing to adjust. So I give him a lot of credit. I think that one of the things that I have heard him here and there on sports radio. He does a weekly interview with one of the shows, and I've heard him, talk with those guys. He's a little bit of an odd duck, but I think that he finds ways to, new and creative ways to motivate the guys, and I think that helps them. If the message isn't stale every single day, maybe that, that's something that, he's learned, and hopefully, can use it and continue to use it. And so, look, I'm excited. Last year I was probably cautiously optimistic. This year I'm more excited for them to get the job done because they've done it, and we know they can do it, and we know what they have, and we know they're the best team in the league, and just gotta hope nobody gets hurt. And when I say nobody gets hurt, I mean like Derek White or Holiday or anybody else, and keep their health whatever they can. And let's go, baby. Sunday at 3:30 is the first game. Easter Sunday, and then Wednesday is the next game. So we probably will move the show to Thursday next week due to the Celtics being in the playoffs. That's kind of what we've been doing in the playoffs when the Bruins and Celtics players kind of work around when they play so that we're not on at the same time. And it'll give us something to talk about as well. And hopefully we'll be talking about 2 wins. So that's it for the Celtics. I'm going to move along now. I'm going to watch the time. I swear, Frank, I will do my best not to overrun the show. We're going to keep things moving now. We're going to talk about the Red Sox, Um, I specifically want to talk about their hitting woes. They just uh, they've had some issues. They can't score runs. They're not getting timely hits. They're striking out a boatload. Um, just awful at the plate. Their approach is bad. Uh, I'm pissed off at this stupid drive line analytics crap that they have these guys doing now. Um, you know, the guys they're not being taught how to hit line drives. Everything's a launch angle, and they live with the strikeouts, and they don't know the strike zone, and they swing at garbage. And you know, I'm extremely frustrated by this, and you know, I think that they just have too many. I mean, they played, they lost 3 out of 4 to Toronto. They lost 2 out of 3 to Chicago, a team they shouldn't have lost to at all. They should have swept them. Chicago was 2-10, and they had lost 8 in a row. And you lost 2 out of 3 to those guys. You got pounded the first game 11-1, made 5 errors. That's another thing that's sticking in my craw is all these errors. They lead the major leagues with 19 errors as of yesterday. They've been talking about defense for 2 years now. Where is this fix? Where is the fix for the defense? I'm tired of hearing about this. They got pounded the other night 16-1 against Tampa Bay. They struck out 14 times as a team that game. Their approach is horrible. You got guys striking out left and right. You got guys hitting, $180, 200. And even the guys that are hitting 300 are striking out. I had to look it up. And I'll give this to you real quick. Jarren Duran has 20 strikeouts in 19 games. Devers has 28 strikeouts in 19 games. Bregman has 18. Story has 23. Abreu has 17. Campbell, the second baseman, has 18. Casas has 18. The only guy that has less strikeouts per game is Ceddanne Rafaela with 11 strikeouts in 17 games. Everybody else has either 1 per game or over. They have 153 strikeouts in 19 games. That's an average of 8 strikeouts a game minimum. That's putrid. I'm sorry. I don't know who these analytic guys are that live with these strikeouts, but back in the day, nobody did this. Yes, Reggie Jackson struck out a lot. Okay, he was like, you want to talk about guys like him, Dave Kingman, Rob Deere, guys that hit, 50 homers and struck out, 200 times in a year. Okay, but not the whole freaking lineup. The whole lineup wasn't riddled with those guys. The rest of the lineup was riddled with 300 hitters. Nobody's hitting 300, right? Nobody knows how to hit 300 anymore. I mean, the Red Sox do have a couple guys. Bregman's hitting 321. Trevor Story's hitting 311. Abreu has cooled off. He's hitting 310. Everybody else is hitting 220, 200, 180. And they live with it. And you know what? It's not just the Red Sox. I've hopped on this before. All teams have 1 or 2 guys that are batting, $150 or $180. It's frustrating. It really bugs the crap out of me. But Tampa Bay the other night didn't strike out. They kept, what the Red Sox would do. They would, hit a single, hit a double, move a guy over, hit a single, hit a double, hit a single. They were hitting singles and doubles all over the place. I mean, nobody's doing that. And, and what frustrates me is for a guy like Alex Cora to buy into this crap, to just buy into all this nonsense. He's been around long enough. He knows better. I'm sorry, this crap doesn't work, but I don't know how he can fix it, because he would have to fire the hitting coach, and somebody upstairs would have to fire all these driveline, analytic nerd guys, and be like, you guys are gone. And actually, it happened. When Dave Dombrowski got fired from the Red Sox, he went to Philadelphia, and he cleaned all those guys out. Get the bleep out of here. You guys are useless. And what happened? The freaking Red Sox hired them all. Now we suck. It's like, wait a minute. that whole thing, and I'm going to hop on this again. The whole thing with Jim Rice, where the kid went over to Jim Rice to ask for some help, and the drive line guy went over and was like, "Nope, that's not how we teach him here." And Jim Rice was like, "Who the hell are you?" I'd be doing that if I was Alex Cora. I'd be doing that. What are you doing? You didn't play. Get the hell out of here. That's a wicked concern for me. I don't know how they survive another year. Listen. Frank thinks they're going to win 92 games or 95 games and win the World Series. Not like this. They're not. Not striking out 14 times a game and getting 6 hits a game. It's not going to happen. Their whole approach, where is the Kevin Youkilis's and Trot Nixon's and these guys that were good with the strike zone and could get some hits. I mean, this is brutal. This is disgusting. I can't stand it. I just can't. And Alex Cora, is I'll read a quote from him. Come down here, strike out 14 times, 15 times. They have to make a handful of plays and they're in a good spot. I'm not saying spread out, choke up, and put the ball in play because that doesn't work either, but we have to fight at bats and we have to execute the plan with conviction. I think there's a few guys, not everybody, that they're in between right now, what they want to hit and when they want to hit it. It's like, wait a minute. You're telling them not to choke up and not put the ball in play? Are you stupid? Then you're part of the problem. And I'm going to call you out now because you should know better. You watched hitters hit better than this. You're not going to tell me that these guys are going to all of a sudden flip a switch until you guys start changing the whole approach. That whole drive line, launch angle, whatever it is, crap, home run you guys are counting on. You guys don't have the guys to do that. You can't afford to have every single guy in the lineup strike out once or twice a game. That's insanity. That is just absolute insanity to me. That is stupid. That makes no freaking sense. Can you listen? I want Tony Gwynn back. I want Wade Boggs back. I want Rod Carew. I want guys that know how to hit, that know what the strike zone is, and understand what the hell they're doing, and get rid of these bozos. Tristan Casas thinks he's God's gift to him. Called out Ted Williams, said the home run chair was phony baloney. Listen, when you hit the ball out there, you can call it phony baloney. When you're hitting a $180 and you're not even batting your weight, you can shut the hell up. You got nothing to say. All right, rant over. Let me say, and you know what? It's not just the hitting; it's the defense too. Their defense has been bad. I'm sick of seeing the errors. They made 5 errors in a game. That's freaking, double A crap. You guys shouldn't be making errors like that. I'm sorry. That just shouldn't happen. So there's a lot there that needs to be cleaned up. I don't like this. For 2 years now, we've been talking about cleaning up the defense, and we're going to play better defense, and it's going to be better. I have yet to see it. So, wake the bleep up, guys, and get some stick them in your glove or do whatever it is you got to do, but you got to do a better job. You won't make it. I'm telling you right now. And the pitching, the starting pitching, Tanner Houck, I don't know what the hell his problem is, but for him to break a Red Sox record and give up the most runs in less than 3 innings with 12 earned runs in less than 3 innings and break a record, that's bad. He had nothing the other night. They were hitting everything off him. I watched it, and he just looked lost. I mean, this guy, the first half of last year was unbelievable, made the All-Star team. The second half, he kind of crumbled, and this year it's just gotten worse. And, he's got a 9.16 ERA. That's atrocious. I expected him to be one of the better guys on this pitching staff. If they don't get more out of him, they're done. Him and, Walker Buehler, another guy that, had a rough outing a couple outings ago. Last outing, 5 innings, 2 runs. They gotta start getting 6 innings out of these guys. This crap of 5 innings and only 2 runs or whatever, and you're throwing 90, 100 pitches. I know that's the way the league is now, and it's horrible. The pitch counts are high. The pitch counts, they nibble too much. They don't attack the hitters You know, if you want to look at a bright spot, I'll say Garrett Crochet looks like the ace that they haven't had for a while, probably since Chris Sale when they first got him, the year they won the World Series. Uh, Dude, almost threw a no-hitter against Chicago, 7 1/3 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, 11 strikeouts. The guy was he was aggressive. He was attacking the zone. I don't see enough guys attacking the strike zone the way guys like Pedro Martinez used to, and Kurt Schilling and Roger Clemens and all the top guys. I mean, Crochet did that the other day. He attacked the strike zone. I don't, yes, they're going to nibble and throw a pitch outside or inside or low, but yeah, they're going to nibble here and there. But every pitch or every at bat can't be a 7-pitch at bat. You won't get through 4 innings. They have to have shorter innings. They need more innings where and you have to put the ball in play, I think, sometimes. They have to have innings where they're throwing 9, 10, 11 pitches in an inning with regularity. It can't be 23 in the first inning and then 17 in the second, and the guy's got 40 pitches thrown in 2 innings, and he's averaging 20 pitches an inning. He's got maybe 5 innings tops in him, and 4 1/3, and he's out at 95 pitches. Like, your team won't survive. They need better starting pitching. And I really thought that Houck was going to be one of the cornerstones. I really thought he'd be a good number 3 guy. This whole pitching staff is all out of whack now. The injuries to Brian Bayo and Lucas Giolito and Connor Crawford have really put a crimp in what they can do, and it's disturbing. And it's the same song and dance. This is like 3 or 4 years running now where their pitching staff isn't good enough. Their starting pitching isn't good enough, and I'd say most of the bullpen is pretty good, except for frickin' Zach Kelly. Why the F is he still here? Again, I saw enough of him last year. I don't need to see more of him with his 6+ ERA. Get him the hell out of here. Get me somebody else. I don't get it. But they're going to have issues all year long with their starting pitching. You have to get. I don't know. The league wide. It's not just the Red Sox, and it's frustrating. I watch games, and it's 4 2/3, 85, 90 pitches. They take the pitcher out. The guy pitches 5 1/3 innings, throws 100 pitches. They take the pitcher out. Then the bullpen has to come in, and you have to overexert the pen every game. You got to have more than. We've been talking about this. You got to have more than one ace. You got Garrett Crochet can give you 7, 8 innings. And then you got everybody else gives you 5. It's not good enough. They need at least one more guy that can give you 6, 7 innings minimum in a game, and save the bullpen. I don't see 90-something wins with this team today. The way that they're playing with the errors and the not hitting and the pitching, and it's just the whole thing is just like, I feel like they're right back where they were last year. On paper they look better, but I can't buy into what they're doing because it just looks the same. It looks the same, and I'm not happy about it. And I hope it gets better. I know it's early, and I know the cold was a factor because, again, I've hopped on this before. Baseball starts when it's cold and ends when it's cold. I've been talking about this for 2 years now. All the cold weather teams should play where it's warm for the first 2 weeks. Play in California, play in Texas, play in Florida. And then at the end of April, when we start getting some 60s around here, then play here at Fenway and play in New York and play in Philly and wherever, Milwaukee and Minnesota. Like, having games in April in any of those states is so stupid. It's freaking. What a game last week here, 35 degrees with a wind chill of 19. Everybody's all bundled up. They got the scarves on their face. Even the players all had those hood things on. It's like, this is awful. I mean, it's just that whole thing is just frustrating too. But that's another rant for another day. Let me move along. I do want to get to the Patriots. I do want to talk about them because they are prepping for the draft. Abdul Carter, one of the top projected top picks, came in for a visit, and he met with the team, met with Mike Vrabel, and obviously, Mike Vrabel's not going to spill the beans on what the meeting was about or whatever. But, There's concerns that Abdul Carter has a foot injury. Oh, excuse me. He's got I don't know what it is, a stress or something in his foot. So everybody's concerned now that he won't be right later on. We'll see. That's a side issue for a later day. But for right now, I'm encouraged that they brought him in. They may have a shot to get him, and I think they should take him. Mike Vrabel's quote is, I would say that the tape is dynamic. There's a lot of qualities of a disruptive pass rusher, very slippery, loose, sudden player. It was a fun tape to watch. So those are the kind of guys the Patriots haven't had since Matt Judon, a guy that's disruptive. They need more of those guys. Chandler Jones, pick a guy. But that's encouraged them that they wanted to bring him in here. And I would not be opposed to picking him if he was there. Absolutely. It's been mentioned a number of times already. It'll get mentioned again next week when the draft is going on. I forget which day the draft starts. I forget if it's Thursday or Friday, but it's one of those 2 nights. And we'll definitely have more on the next show about what who they might pick and what they might do. Maybe we can do like a top 3 or 4 at each position or something like that, and give some people an idea what they might be looking at. We'll see. There is some character concerns with Abdul Carter. There's concerns about there was some 4 personnel people expressed reservations about his makeup. One of them said he's not a great worker, plays his ass off on Saturday, but he's not a great guy during the week because he's so gifted. And then there was another one that said, I heard from some people at the Senior Bowl that Abdul Carter is known as a high maintenance and a bit of an a-hole. Listen, we talk about the diva wide receivers. I hop on them because I don't like them. But, if you don't have one of those guys, you can't win in the NFL. The divas all want the ball. Defensively, I think Matt Judon showed his diva side in his last year here and, forced his way out of here with his whole contract thing. I think it's just the way it is. I'm not happy about it. I don't like it. But, I think that you got to take some of the good with the bad. It's just the way it is. If you want talented guys, you can't pass on everybody. Even Mike Vrabel said, you can't win. You can't do what we want with just a bunch of good dudes. That's not going to get it done. So I think that listen, he's been around long enough. He knows every team has some guys that have character issue, whether it's one guy, a handful of guys, and every team has them. Not everybody's perfect. Every team has a-holes on it. Every workplace has some, I'm sure, at least one. No place is perfect. That's just the way it is. And so, I hear the the sports radio guys once in a while talk about, horses versus ponies. This guy's in the horse category. We want to draft horses at the top of the draft, not ponies. We got to get top-notch talent. And, if that's part of the issue and part of the deal, then, it's on Vrabel to handle it. I would trust that he knows what he's doing and they'll figure it out. I mean, if you really want to nitpick, Keon White, he's another guy last year, kind of spouted off near the end. Probably not happy with the way he was being used. To me, he's more of an upfield pass rush type guy. He's not a stay at home and hold a gap guy. And so to me, when they do that, they waste the guy's talent. I hate that. So that's a guy I'm looking for more this year from, and I hope they get it. Where they're going to be picking at number 4, everything has to be on the table. Trading the pick has to be on the table, if that's an option, and get more picks if they're not happy with who's left. Lots of talk about, Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter being gone by the time they get to the Patriots. Also, some talk about them still drafting Will Campbell, the tackle from LSU, because I don't think that they're scared to take him. I really don't. And honestly, it wouldn't bother me if they took him because they need a left tackle. They don't have one. They still don't have one. They haven't addressed it. And to me, the coaching staff, this coaching staff is much better equipped, in my opinion, having Doug Marrone as the offensive line guy and Dante Scarnecchia here as a consultant to help, better suited to take a guy like Will Campbell and develop him and not have draft a guy that's a right tackle in the draft in his college years, and that's all he played, and then shift him over and have him play left tackle and have the debacle we had last year. I'm done with that. If they do that, then I'll write them off right now. I don't want them to do that. If they do that, they're stupid. You can't waste. And I don't care if they trade back and take a guy number 8 or 10 or wherever they wind up and take a right tackle and then say, we're going to play him at left tackle. If you do that, you're stupid. You're just too stupid. And I'm not going to support that. I'm going to be pissed off. And I think me and many other fans would have every right to be pissed off if you draft a right tackle and then try to think you're going to switch him over just because his arms are a half an inch longer or a quarter of an inch longer than Will Campbell. I think it's Will Campbell. You put him there, you see what he can do, and hopefully they'll pick up another guy somewhere along the way that's a veteran guy that is not going to be, let's say he's a notch below Trent Brown, but he's a notch above Vidarian Lowe, like right in between there. Can we get one of them? Can we do something like that? Because they have to do something. They just can't keep doing the same crap over and over again and thinking they're going to get a different result. It doesn't work that way. So, Mike Vrabel made a comment about the tackles in the draft. He said there's some tackles that certainly will come in and start in the NFL. That's really what you start to look for is impact players when you start picking that high. So, look, he knows that whether the Patriots pick them or somebody else pick them, there's going to be some left tackles drafted high in this draft, probably in the top 10. And whether it's them or somebody else, I think that you're looking at Will Campbell and I forget the other guy's name now. And I should have it, and I'll have it next week. But there's 2 guys that are like at the top as far as tackles go, and those guys are going to be scooped up. I guarantee that it's not going to be like last year when 6 quarterbacks went in the top like 12 or 15 picks. That's not going to happen this year. The quarterback class isn't that deep. Okay, watching the time. Let's move on to the poll questions from last week. Last week's poll questions we had. Give me half a second here, folks. I got it right here. Are you concerned about Jaylen Brown's knee injury heading into the playoffs? Yes, they need him firing on all cylinders, 25%. No, he'll be fine, 75%. So majority of everybody thinks he'll be fine going forward. Anytime I hear that players take shots in their knee or something's wrong with their knee, I feel like, and it's, football is probably more, there's more of a concern with football players on running backs, let's just say. But for guys that have to run up and down the court and play 40 minutes a game, I am in the 25% camp. I think they need him firing on all cylinders. And if he's not, I don't like it. I don't want him playing 20 minutes a game and nursing the knee injury. Hopefully the shots work. Hopefully whatever it is, your maintenance and, stretching and all that, whatever they do, to help get him better, will work. And he'll be good to go. Next poll question. With 2 games left in the season, should the Bruins fire Joe Sacco at season's end or give him another shot next season? Fire him. It's not working out. 17%. Give him another shot, 17%. And somebody threw in fire the GM, and that ended up getting the most at 66%. Sorry, that question will not exist anymore now. The GM's not getting fired. I don't see it happening. I did fail to mention earlier that Charlie Jacobs made a statement about, the steps back that they took this year and how disappointed he was and so on and so forth. And, what he's looking forward to next year and blah, blah, blah. It's just a standard, I'll call it ball washing for lack of a better term. Sugarcoating the fans. That's all. That's just garbage. I don't put any stock into that. Listen, the GM's not getting fired. I don't think Cam Neal's getting out there. I'd be shocked if he got fired before Joe Sacco. Let's put it that way. That's just not what I see. And so the season's over and the playoffs are starting. And so, we'll be curious to see in the next coming days if they actually do fire him, because you have draft come up in June. And typically you want to have the coach in place, like I mentioned last week. You don't want to be waiting until, a week before the draft. Be like, oh, we're hiring a new coach. Like, not that they don't do it that way. It doesn't work. They usually let the guys go pretty quick if they do. And maybe they'll not fire him and move him into somewhere else in the organization, scouting or whatever. Maybe not fire him outright, but I don't think he's going to be the coach. Long story short, that's my take on it. Predictions. Last week's predictions. Last week, I had two. I said Joe Sacco would get fired by the end of this week, and it hasn't happened yet. So I would say half wrong until it actually happens. So if it doesn't happen this week, then I'll be completely wrong as usual, and that's not a surprise because fire the president, Danny. Listen, he's not getting fired. That's long and short of it. They're not getting fired. That's that. Okay, so I also had Tristan Cassis heats up. Wrong again. He can't heat up. He can't get out of his own way. He's been struggling. He's been sucking and striking out too much, and he's in his own head. Another guy. So listen, those guys. We had no Frank last week, so no predictions from him. And so now I will make an attempt, as I usually do, to be wrong again for another week. I do have them here, so I'm going to keep the Joe Sacco fired one, Joe Sacco fired one for another week, just to see if he gets fired this week. We'll see. Another prediction I have: Tanner Houck to the DL. I have a feeling that he's going to have some type of injury he's been fighting through that no one knows about, kind of like Cutter Crawford, where he fought through a knee injury last year. No one talked about it or knew about it. He fought through it, came into training camp. Now he's on the DL. I have a funny feeling he's headed to the DL, whether it's that or whether it's his mechanics and he needs to go get straightened out and needs a couple weeks in Florida. I don't know. Same thing. Look, I said the same thing about Devers, but this guy's just completely lost. I don't know what the hell to do for him, but I fear that there's something wrong with him. And I'm going to make another bold prediction, and Frank would probably poo-poo this and say, no, it's not happening, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think at some point, Devers is going to be at third and Bregman's going to be at second, because Alex Cora is finally going to break down after more bad defense. There's going to be more bad defense in the upcoming weekend. Alex Cora is finally going to be like, okay, I've had enough of this crap. We're making a switch. I want better defense. And so I think it's coming, and I think it might come this week. They just can't. They just can't accept. They can't accept it. They just can't. And so that's my prediction for the week. And so that's it. That's the end of the show, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for voting in the polls. Be sure to catch us on our YouTube channel, and we'll see you all next week.